إن في ذلكم لآيات لقوم يؤمنون. Thank you for listening to me.
Jazakallah khair for that recitation, Sheikh. Great, so thank you so much, everybody. I am really, really pleased that we're here and that we've been able to bring everyone together for this really quite exciting iftar. I've been to a few iftars so far this Ramadan. This is definitely one of the ones that was at the top of my list that I was looking forward to. And a huge thank you to my team at Islamic Relief for putting it together. They've done an incredible job. Now this iftar situates itself in the middle of Ramadan as part of not just our Ramadan campaign, but actually our Eco-Ramadan. Our Eco-Ramadan campaign is about what we can do as Muslims and as part of this beautiful community to think more about how we can better protect the planet and how we can better protect the people from the impacts of the climate crisis. Too many times and too often we hear about the climate crisis, we hear about the challenges facing communities abroad and of course here at home, and we hear about the impact that those communities are having to live through, whether that's as a result of extreme weather changes, floods, or other climate impacts. But one of the things that we all have in our power is the ability to do more to raise awareness, to keep campaigning for change, and to do more things within our communities to try and bring about some consciousness and some change towards improving the climate, not just for us, but for future generations. Now, as part of our Eco-Ramadan theme, we do something that we like to call Fast on Waste, and it's a lovely play on words, but most importantly, the thing that it is it's teaching people and reminding people to be really conscious about what they're consuming and how much waste they're producing, because we know that waste has an impact on the climate and the environment around us. So this is an opportunity for us to think very carefully about what we can do to be more mindful with the waste that we produce during Ramadan. And unfortunately, one of the sad realities for us is that, as many of us around this room will know, we go to an iftar and there is a lot of waste. And so we're trying very hard to try and make sure that message gets across. And not just to us, but also to all of our friends, be they of Muslim faith, other faiths, or no faith at all. Because we think that this is a message that spreads across all faiths. And that's why it's so important that we've been joined by other faith communities today, and Faith for the Climate Network as well. Because this isn't just about getting this message across to Muslim communities, but this is about the strength that we all have and the power of stewardship and of protecting the earth, which is a central message in so many of our faiths. This iftar is particularly special because it's going to be meat-free, it's going to be plastic-free, and inshallah, it is going to be waste-free. So that means if you have leftover food, it's going to come to you in a small package container, and you can take it home with you, and you can keep it for those of you who are fasting, you can keep it for your suhoor. Those of you who are not fasting, you can have it whenever you like. So that is really, really, honestly, quite fantastic, because I have been to iftars, I go to iftars, and I sometimes look at the amount of plastic or the amount of waste or the things that are left behind, and I sometimes just shrink inside myself because I think, how are we as a community going to get better? And it's not going to happen overnight, but things like this are initiatives that are going to help take us on that journey, inshallah. Now, you've heard from me for long enough, and there are much more interesting people that you will now get to hear from. So I'm going to start off. We are obviously in the wonderful Al Manaar Mosque, so I think it's only fitting that we start off by hearing from Abdurrahman Saeed, who is the CEO of Al Manaar. He has been here for the last 9 years, and during that time has played a role in interfaith, voluntary work and public sector networks, bringing the community together. And many of us will know Al Manaar for the great work that it's done to support its local community, particularly in the wake of Grenfell, which is actually when I came to know this mosque really well. And this mosque is a real pillar for its community, and Abdurrahman does a fantastic job at leading the mosque. So over to you.
Thank you. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. I start by saying peace be upon you, which means assalamu alaikum or shalom alaikum. I realize that it's the same in Hebrew and in Arabic. So assalamu alaikum to all of you. Those who are not fasting, I think this is the most difficult and challenging time to fast. The last few minutes of every day is the most difficult, whether you're fasting or not. So we are all fasting this evening, and we look forward, of course, to breaking the fast. I'll say a few words about the importance of the environment in relation to Islam. There are several verses that we can find on the Holy Book, the Qur'an. One of those verses is verse 7, chapter 7, verse 31, which speaks about do not waste resources. So eat and drink, this is what the verse says, but do not waste. So that's like a formal command. You're not allowed to waste. Unfortunately, we as Muslims tend to ignore or overlook this command. So the second one is, again, chapter 17, verse 27. It speaks again that those who waste are friends of the devil or brothers of the devil. So that's how severe it is. And then a third point is chapter 6, verse 165. It says human beings are trustees, khilafa or khalifa. We are on earth, we are entrusted to look after the earth by God, our creator. So that's also a responsibility for us to look after the environment. And then we have chapter 55, verse 7 to 8, again about the environment and how we should be looking after it. It says, in fact, here, Allah created the world, Allah means God, created the world in the perfect balance or mizan. So that's very important that we look and preserve this creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the final one is chapter 7, verse 56. Waste is related to corruption. So the verse says, do not cause corruption on the earth after it has been set right by God. So this is how Islam emphasizes the importance of the environment and avoiding waste. With that, I think I will come to a close, and thank you for listening. Jazakumullah khair.
Jazakallah khair for that. Thank you for those words. I'd now like to introduce Canon Giles Goddard, who is the vicar at St John's, our local parish priest for our office, actually. He's the chair of the Faith for the Climate Network, and that supports interfaith work and on climate change. Over to you.
How are we doing for time?
Tight, but we'll get through it.
Well, stop me if I go on too long. Just to say, first of all, that it's a real honour and a real delight to be here, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak in your mosque. It's a most wonderful event, and I'm thrilled that you've put it all together, and congratulations on that. So as you heard, I'm chair of Faith for the Climate, and we set up Faith for the Climate back in 2014, in the run-up to the Paris COP21, whatever it was, because I was very conscious that there was nowhere where people of different faiths could come together and work on climate. And it seemed to me that it was a complete no-brainer, because this is something that we all share. We're all tenants of this earth, and we're called to look after it. We're called to look after it, and we're called to love it, and we're called to care for it, and we're called to allow it to come deep into our spirituality. And I think that's one of the most exciting things that's come for me out of the work that we've been doing with Faith for the Climate, is seeing how profound it is in every tradition. So within Christianity, of course, we have the beginning of the book of Genesis, and we hear about the creation, and at the end of every day, God sees and it's good. God saw and it was good. He created male and female, he created them. In the image of God, he created them, and God saw and it was very good. So right at the heart of, our Christian faith is that sense that, creation is something which is wonderful. And if we damage it, we're sinning, basically. We're sinning, let's name it. And so the more I discover about the relationships, and we're going to hear a little bit about Buddhism in a moment, the more urgent it feels that we really do what we can. This year is a very special year for me because, as you all know, Lent and Ramadan are coinciding. So Ramadan started on Ash Wednesday. And I've always fasted for Ramadan for the last 5 or 6 years. I haven't always done the whole thing, so I perhaps sometimes started a bit late, but this time I am starting at the right time in the morning. And I'm also reading the Holy Qur'an, and I've got up to Surah 75, so in fact I'm going to finish it tomorrow, I think. And it's been a joy to read the Qur'an and see how many, thank you for sharing those references, but to see how imbued the Qur'an is with the goodness of creation and with the fact that God created everything and gave it to us in order for us to look after it. So I'm conscious of time, I'm not going to say much more, except that we have done some fantastic work together with Islamic Relief and Faith for Climate and many of the people in this room. And I'm thinking of the mass lobby of Parliament that we did last year. And I'm thinking of the joint prayers that we had in the run-up to COP26 in Glasgow, of which by the Cecil Rhodes statue. And it was a wonderfully moving moment where people from different faiths prayed for climate justice. It becomes more urgent, as you all know, the government is moving away, it feels like, from its climate commitments, and around the world, it's all going backwards. So more power to us and to our work. So thank you all very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much. What an important message for us to all reflect on. Now, our final speaker, we're doing okay for time, everyone, so don't worry too much, is Venerable Drolma. Venerable Drolma is the Executive Director of the Jamyang Buddhist Center, which is a Tibetan Buddhist center following the tradition of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Before returning to London, she spent 14 years leading the Vajrapani Institute in California, which is a sister center to the Jamyang Center. Over to you.
So good evening, everyone. I want to echo what Reverend Giles shared. It's a real privilege to be here, and I want to especially thank the community of Al Manaar for welcoming us here. It's something very special when communities of different traditions actually come together in a physical space. And so it's a privilege to be here, and we want to thank you guys. Like, of course, within our community, we're organized many events, and we know what it takes to organize. Like, it takes a tremendous amount of commitment and passion and care, and so just us being together is the fruit of a lot of work. So we want to also thank you guys. In terms of the preciousness of the practice of Ramadan, which is a testament of devotion, of discipline, of mindful consumption. When we heard about the Eco Ramadan, we're very, very moved. And there's no question that those principles are echoed in different spiritual traditions in different ways. And so within Buddhism, I wanted to share the daily prayer that we do in our community at the beginning of our meals. And so we sit together and we pray, and the prayer reminds us that and invites us to think of food as medicine, and to eat the food without attachment or hatred, not out of avarice, pride, or out of a wish for an enviable body, but merely to sustain the body and to benefit beings. And I recite this prayer every day, and there's not a day that goes by where there's in my mind where I pause for a moment and think, I not to eat this food out of attachment, but to sustain the body and to benefit beings. So Eco Ramadan is this, is this invitation to be able to enjoy together in community without excess. And so in Buddhism, one of a key theme, which again is echoed across all traditions, is interdependence. And interdependence is really at the core, for us, that everything exists in relationship. And so to honor those relationships and to honor the relationship with human beings, all living life, and of course the earth that sustains this life. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama, you mentioned His Holiness, talks very often about this sense of universal responsibility. When we think of the environment, and often in non-spiritual circles, it can be thought about or approached as from a technological perspective, from a political perspective, but of course in spiritual tradition, and certainly in Buddhism, it's really, for us, we relate to it as a crisis of a mind, and to really, that's why when we do the prayer of reflecting of one's relationship, attachment, and so forth, so greed, avarice, attachment, and to transform those with antidotes of wisdom and compassion. And so those are really the core of our relationship with those topics and those themes, which of course resonated, in other traditions. And so the last thing I wanted to say is, the importance of evenings like tonight, where we are in resonance and share these principles, and it takes courage, it takes commitment, and so it's that resonance here that we feel. And so we want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to be in resonance with all of you here tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all of our speakers, and again, thank you to our team. We are going to be hearing from one more speaker. That is going to happen after Iftar. We are going to hear the Maghrib Adhan, which will happen in about 1 minute. Women's prayer facilities are upstairs, and men's prayer facilities are out of the doors and turn right. I'm sorry, I can't read my own handwriting, but I think that's right. Please do, after you have prayed, for those of you that are praying, please do come back in here and join us for the meal. Those of you that are not praying, you are welcome to stay in here, food will be served. And I just want to pause there by saying a massive thank you once again to everybody for joining us, and to Al Manaar Mosque for having us this evening.